Let's have a look at this case study, which is related to the traffic problem in Dubai. So, it also represents the overall strategy which we follow in the data science process, which we discussed in the previous slides. So, initially, we want to have some information, right? And then we want to understand that, and then on the basis of our understanding, we want to perform some actions, right? So in information, we usually perform some descriptive analytics, right? So descriptive analytics basically represents that what happened at the specific location, right? So depending upon the case study which you are trying to solve through data science, all these steps will be modified, but the steps will remain the same. So in descriptive analytics, we tend to see that what happened. For example, if we are talking about the traffic scenarios, we will see that where are the recurring bottlenecks in Dubai, right? So specifically, if we are talking about to one country or city, then we will see that what are the bottlenecks that are causing. How's where are they, right? So the distance in terms of distance and the time, and what are the peak hours of different areas in Dubai, and all peak hours changing over time. So all this information is related to the descriptive analytics. And once we have this descriptive analytics, we basically move on to diagnostic analytics, which means that we want to know that why did it happen. For example, if we are talking about the traffic congestion, then we are trying to see in diagnostic analytics that why that happened. So what's the reason behind that? Is the oversupply of taxi vehicles causing congestion, or is there a lack of parking spots, or is there a typical commute route for people residing in a specific zone? So here we are basically trying to figure out the reason in the diagnostic analytics. Then in predictive analytics, we are trying to see that what will happen because of this diagnostic analytics. So we are basically trying to predict the situation or the circumstances. For example, we will be interested to predict that what will be the demand for taxi in the area surrounding a future event, or what is the demand for a taxi in a specific zone, for example for the next 30 minutes or 1 hour, right? Or what are the future hotspots based on the old data and population data, right? So we are using basically these things in order to perform the predictive analytics. And once we have this predictive analytics, then we move on to the action which needs to be taken in order to overcome these things, which that action comes under the prescriptive analytics, right? So in prescriptive analytics, we want to determine that what action should be needed. So if congestion is caused by commuters sharing same origin or destination, introduce carpooling. So these actions could be taken such as carpooling, call sharing, or maybe we need to introduce some new bus routes, right? So there can be a number of solutions which can be taken in order to overcome these challenges. Okay, so now let's have a look at the CRISP DM, so which stands for the Cross Industry Standard Processing for Data Mining, right? So it is a standard model which is basically followed in order to in the data mining process, which is very similar to the data science process which we have discussed earlier, right? So in this diagram, this blue shade represents the data strategy, green represents the data science, and blue represents data engineering, right? So the first thing is about the business understanding, right? In the CRISP model, the very first block is about to understand the business, the case study which we are trying to solve, right? Because that is very important, and all the preceding steps basically relies on the first two steps, which are the business understanding and the data understanding, right? Because we are trying to process the data which is being used in different businesses, and we are trying to have some insights from the data. And if we don't have a proper understanding of the data, then we will not have a proper understanding of the business. Or it can also be in the other way around. If we don't have the proper understanding of the business, then we will not have the proper understanding of the underlying data theme which they are using. So these are basically the first two basic building blocks of the crisp data mining model. And once we have some understanding of the business and the data, then we basically prepare the data, which can also include some pre-processing techniques, because as I told you earlier, that it might be possible that the data is not in a very good form, right? Because there can be some redundant bits, there can be repeated data, there can be missing values, right? So these are all the challenges which we need to solve before we move on to the modeling process, right? So once we prepared the data and we have applied all the pre-processing techniques which have brought the data in a quite good shape, then we can define our model. Again, depending upon the data which we have, we need to modify or we need to create a new model from scratch. So this modeling basically helps us to understand or to have the core knowledge or the insights of the data which we are trying to understand here. And once we have the desired model, then we perform some evaluation, and these evaluation basically helps us to understand the that how good our model was and how good results we have achieved from the data, right? So this evaluation and modeling thing is purely from the data science, but the first three blocks, they involve data strategy, some data science, as well as some data engineering, right? But both the modeling and evaluation is basically being performed within the domain of the data science. And once we have the evaluation, we can go to the deployment of the application, or if it is not the required up to the required mark, then we can repeat the cycle and we can go again from the business and data understanding, and then we can improve the model. After the improvement in the model, we can again evaluate it, and if it's up to the mark, we can deploy our model. Okay, so far we have discussed the basics and introductory bits of the data science pipeline. We have seen different processes. We have seen that what are the major blocks that are involved in the data science process. And you have seen that one of the very major process, or one of the very major building block of a data science pipeline is related to machine learning, right? So machine learning is a tool which is used for data science. So it is very crucial and very important to have a thorough understanding of the machine learning or AI domain, right? So now we will have some introductory things on the artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we will see that how we can apply this in data science, and how machine learning is basically helping us in order to solve different problems through data science.